So I have not done a pregnancy update since 32 weeks, and this will be my 36-week update. So I've got a lot to say. Some things have happened, so here we go. And I'm not alone. Yeah. So as always, I have my trusty 3-ring binder and notes from my first pregnancy. So from 32 weeks, here's my bump. From 32 weeks last time, things are just kind of normal, but I was definitely starting, don't step on my stuff, please. But I was definitely starting to slow down, it seems. I should have done this when she went to bed, but you know what? We're just seizing the moment. Okay. Yeah, but I was starting to slow down, even, it says, with my workouts and stuff, I'm like, I haven't worked out the whole week, I feel so lazy and tired and blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, girl, I feel you. And then, so 36 weeks last, wait, where are me? Yeah, not a whole lot, with the first one during this time. I started getting stretch marks around 35 weeks with my first pregnancy. This time, right now I don't see any new ones. I just see the existing. So I definitely anticipate there being more to come. Hi, that was nice. I anticipate there being more to come because this baby belly is bigger than the one with her. So I just know there's gonna be more, and they might not show up for, I don't know, maybe a couple days, a couple weeks after I give the baby, after I have the baby, give birth to the baby, whatever we're going with there. Let's see, so yeah, and then 36 weeks with number 1. I had my group B strep test and that was negative. I also had that last week and that was negative as well. So we're negative and negative again. At 36 weeks last time she checked and said baby was head down. But at my appointment yesterday, she did not check. At least not to see where, if the baby was head down or not. So maybe she could just tell and she was not worried about it, so she didn't say anything. But yeah, 36 weeks, let's see. Starting to crave a mix of salty and sweet things. So I was starting to crave salty things again at 36 weeks. So if you remember my first pregnancy, all I wanted was anything sugar. Cookies, cakes, pies. It was ridiculous. A lot of cookies, I think. And this time, I haven't really had any major cravings, but it's interesting that it says at 36 weeks, I started to crave salty stuff again, because then I was wondering, I said, it makes me wonder if we're getting close to the end because my cravings have started to switch back to my usual or saltier foods. And I will say that for the last week, I haven't, but today, for example, it took everything in me not to go to the store and buy, if it was up to me, and if there would be no side effects or guilt from it. I mean, and I guess guilt is what you make it, but if it was up to me, I would have eaten, honest to God, a tub of cheese balls and cookie dough for dinner. That's what I wanted. That's what I've been thinking about today. That's what I wanted to eat, especially those damn cheese balls. If they weren't so I wouldn't say difficult to get your hands on, but I know the specific ones that I like, and they're only at Target, and that's across town. And if it wasn't such a pain for like my husband to go get there, if they sold those cheese tubs at gas stations, I would be in trouble because I'd be making him stop and go and get these cheese tubs. But yeah, that's what I've wanted. I've wanted salty things. Yesterday, I bought a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. I ate those, not the whole thing. But I had some of those. And then the other day I was craving sour cream and onion potato chips. So I had those. So I have wanted all the salty things this week for sure. So I think that's kind of interesting that looking back at 36 weeks, I was starting to crave more salty stuff. And here I am wanting all the salty stuff at 36 weeks, like not being able to get enough of it. So last week though, right as when I was 36 weeks exactly, I slept horribly that night. And I woke up that morning and I had told my husband that I had the worst night of sleep that I've ever had in pregnancy, like ever. And I said that was the worst night ever. And I could hardly get up out of bed. I had severe pain, and I'll show you like severe pain from like all the way like lower. Oh, hi. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, you're learning to say hello.
Hello.
Hola.
Hello.
Hola. Bonjour.
Hola.
Can you say bonjour?
Hello.
Bonjour. We'll work on it. I'm more of a French speaker. Okay, so I had this horrible pain and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where it was coming from. Can we not, please? Can we not? I didn't know where it was coming from. I could hardly breathe. It was just so difficult to do any movement. But I knew I kind of just needed to like get up and on with my day. So I got her ready. I'm gonna move because I think she's gonna play with this toy that makes a ton of noise. Yep. But yeah, so I thought I just got up and got ready and went on with everything as usual. And then, but I was in a lot of pain. I dropped her off. I went to work and still had this awful pain, and I don't know what it was. And I thought maybe I had pulled a muscle, but it felt like I pulled my whole stomach muscle. And then I started getting really nauseous and just not feeling well that way. And I thought I was gonna puke, and I had to do some things for work. I had to kind of drive around a little bit and like run some like errands and do some work meetings. So I was out and about driving, and I for sure thought so many times that I was gonna have to pull over on the side of the road. And I even had somebody else like work related in the car with me, and I was prepared to just be like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna puke. I just kept driving and being like, So, hey, no thank you. No thank you. Isla, no thank you. No thank you. Can you leave it alone?
Hi.
Not leaving it alone.
Yeah.
But anyway, so on top of that, then I wasn't feeling the baby move, and this baby is so active that, I mean, it feels like he's doing somersaults all day, every day. And so, but from him not moving from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. was a pretty big deal. So I, kind of tied up some loose ends at work, and then I called my clinic. Oh, and on the off chance that I did feel him move, it was like a sharp pain. Like I almost didn't want him to move, because every time he moved, it was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, stop. It hurt so much. And the pain was not, people asked multiple times, like the nurses, once I went in, they asked like, do you think it's contractions? I'm like, no, this is not contractions. This is a constant, steady pain that I have had since the middle of the night. you know, I slept awful and I could feel this pain that came on. Like, it's not contractions because there's no break. I haven't had a break then in this one contraction in 10 hours. So I knew that it wasn't contractions. And so I called the clinic and they had me go straight to the hospital to labor and delivery. So I went there and they checked the baby. They hooked us up to a monitor right away. And right away I heard the baby's heartbeat and I was like, oh, thank God. Because that was my worst fear. I was really scared and thought that maybe I was losing a baby or that something like horrible was happening. Or the baby was in distress and that's why I was feeling the pain. I just didn't know. I'd never felt anything like that before. So I was kind of prepared for anything and everything walking in, like the good and the bad. And so the baby was fine. They're like, the baby's perfect. Everything's good. But what's wrong with me then? So they took blood draws. They had hooked me up to an IV. They were taking my temperature because then I was going from like, hi, I would like a hug. So then I was going from like, I'd be really hot and then all of a sudden I'd be freezing and I'm like, can I have warm blankets again? And then I'd be so hot I didn't want to wear like anything and I'm taking off clothes and they're getting me ice packs. So we literally had like hot pads and ice packs on the same table and I just would alternate like every half hour from whatever I was feeling. So yeah, and then I was still nauseous and then they took my temp and I had like a normal temperature and then, but they're like, well, we'll give you some Tylenol for the pain and see if that helps. And so I took the Tylenol and then all of a sudden, a little after they gave me the Tylenol, I mean, a bit longer, like waiting for it to kick in, like when it should have kicked in, they took my temp again and I actually had a fever. So they're like, well, that's weird that we would have given you Tylenol and now you have a fever. And what else? There's just like so much going on and it was just so chaotic. But yeah, like blood samples, like all the labs that they did, like everything just kept fluctuating. Oh, and then I started to actually have contractions and I could feel them. Like I started to feel the beginning of what I remember them feeling like before. And they were coming like every 5 minutes, not lasting very long, like 15-20 seconds maybe, but every 5 minutes they came super consistent like that for several hours. And they were like, well, we're not going to stop them. Like if you're gonna go into labor here, we're gonna let it happen. So that was kind of weird because then my husband and I were like preparing, like, whoa, what if we end up having a baby in the next 24 hours? Like, this is unexpected. I mean, I'm 36 weeks, so it's not the end of the world. And the doctors had reassured me that, like, where I was, like, the baby would spend a few days in the NICU and then that would be it. And we'd be fine. But, you know, preferably they wanted the baby to stay in. We wanted the baby to be in for at least a week or more. So long story short, they just kept running all these repeated tests, had me hooked up to monitors all night, had me having IVs, and all of the same things kept happening, the chills, and then I'd be hot, and then, you know, and then I started having muscle spasms in my back, were the worst thing I've ever felt also. That was terrible, and I could only find one position, and it's super awkward, to sit in. And that's the only one that felt good. And then my husband would be rubbing, like he was like pulling on my back super hard, but it felt really good. And that was the only thing that brought me any relief. And then they finally gave me Visceral. And they said that they were going to keep me overnight anyway. So I agreed to take it. I didn't want to take it earlier because they said it would make me drowsy. And I didn't want to be drowsy like during the day, or like if they ended up not keeping me and I had to go home, I didn't want to be all loopy. So when they said that they were going to keep me overnight anyway, then I agreed to have it. And I had a fantastic night of sleep and I woke up feeling better. And I have felt, and that was a week ago now, so I have felt better every day since. And yeah, so I guess other than that, I had a headache like a couple days ago, and I don't get headaches either unless I'm super hungover, which hasn't happened in a while because I haven't been out and about partying for quite some time with these two kind of back-to-back kiddos. So I had this headache, and it was like a frontal lobe headache, just this throbbing that came on out of nowhere, and it was awful. And I asked my doctor at the appointment yesterday about it, and I'm like, okay, so I've had some Tylenol now, and I also don't like to take Tylenol and all that either. So I was like, what can I do to get rid of this? So she gave me a couple things, and then she had told me to take some more Visceral, which they did give me a prescription at the hospital, and I didn't want to take a ton of it because I also didn't want to feel like tempted to use all this like kind of like a sleep med or like a Benadryl, which is kind of what they refer to it as. And I didn't want to feel tempted to like take all these things just to make me sleep. Like I wanted it to just be like something I could kind of fight through. But anyway, I took the Visceral last night, slept like a baby, haven't had a headache symptom since. So maybe that's what I needed, was just like a solid night of sleep instead of, I do toss and turn quite a bit, just with pregnancy aches and pains. My hips get sore in the middle of the night. So beyond that, we're now just kind of we're kind of in the early stages of baby watch. So stay tuned. I don't know if I'll do weekly updates now, if I'll suddenly switch to weekly updates. Maybe I will. That could be fun. So that's 36 weeks.